Nicole Kidman's $325 million divorce isn't about Nicole Kidman. It's about math. 306 versus 59. Two numbers that quietly tell the story of a love that outlasted fame, but not reality. For 19 years, they were Hollywood's power couple, a movie queen and a country king, bound by love, tested by fame. But behind every public smiles was a private calendar. 306 days together, 59 days apart. Except over time, those numbers reversed. Why would Keith Urban, one of the most successful country stars and the 3 stars in the world, agree to see his daughters for just 59 days a year? Because sometimes, what looks like distance is really protection. The custody papers, the silence, the prenup, they're not just legal documents. They're confessions, written in fine print. And together, they reveal a story Hollywood never saw coming. To understand why Nicole finally walked away, you have to look beyond the headlines and deep into the details most people missed. Because this wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the end of a pattern, one Nicole vowed never to repeat. September 30th, 2025. A date that sent a ripple through Hollywood and a shockwave through 2 industries. Nicole Kidman files for divorce after 19 years of marriage. The reason, one simple phrase, irreconcilable differences. To the outside world, this came out of nowhere. Just months earlier, they were walking red carpets, laughing under flashing lights, holding hands like newlyweds. No signs of strain, no rumors of scandal, no whispers of separation. And then nothing. No statements from Nicole. No tour cancellations from Keith. Just silence. A silence that felt louder than any confession. But in Hollywood, silence isn't peace. It's a message. And sometimes it's a warning. This wasn't just the quiet after a breakup. This was strategic silence, the kind that hides truth behind lawyers and legal lines. And when you start reading between those lines, a pattern emerges. Because this message, this silence, begins with 2 numbers. Numbers that quietly destroy the illusion of a perfect marriage. 306 and 59. 2 digits that separate love from loneliness. And tell us exactly why Nicole Kidman finally walked away. 306 days. 59 days. At first glance, they look like ordinary numbers. But in the fine print of Nicole Kidman's divorce papers, they define an entire life. 306 days. That's how long Nicole will have custody of their daughters each year. 59 days, that's Keith's time. On paper, it's simple. But in real life, it means something far heavier. It means 2 young girls waking up to their mother's voice almost every morning. And seeing their father only in fragments, birthdays, holidays, moments squeezed between schedules. Nicole raising them alone, carrying the everyday chaos, the laughter, the lessons. Keith, the occasional visitor in a home that used to be his. And the most haunting part, the documents never explain why. No mention of touring conflicts. No mention of substance issues. No claims of neglect, distance, or betrayal. Just silence. And in that silence, you hear everything. The silence says something broke. Not overnight, not in public, but slowly, quietly beneath the surface. Because when the paperwork speaks in numbers instead of words, it's not about logistics, it's about loss. 306 days of trying. 59 days of letting go. So how did a marriage that once looked unbreakable end up this uneven? The divorce filing came on September 30, 2025. But the truth, it was sealed 2 months earlier. According to court records, Keith Urban signed the parenting plan, the legal blueprint of their children's future, long before the public ever knew they were separating. Which means, while the world saw them smiling on red carpets, sharing anniversary posts, and calling each other soulmates, behind the scenes, the ink on their goodbye was already drying. Fans began to wonder, were they celebrating love? or performing it. Because when two people post joy while signing separation papers, it's not deception, it's denial. It's holding onto the image long after the feeling has gone. And buried deep within those legal pages, one line stands out. A lump sum child support payment. Not monthly, not yearly. Just one final transfer, clean, complete, and cold. In Hollywood divorces, that's rare. Unusual. And telling. It doesn't speak of partnership, it speaks of distance. A need to close every door, once and for all. This wasn't just a separation. It was a statement, a carefully written message hidden between signatures and silence. But what made Nicole finally say, enough? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning. Before the headlines. Before the heartbreak. Back to the moment she thought love would finally last. When people think of Hollywood breakups, they imagine betrayal, scandal, secrets. But sometimes, the reason is simpler. It's time. Nicole Kidman's world moved in chapters, 3 months on a movie set, 6 months at home, always orbiting between roles and reality. Keith Urban's life was measured in miles. Over 200 days a year on tour, city to city, stage to stage. At first, they said the distance made them stronger. That every reunion was a celebration, every goodbye a promise. But love, no matter how deep, can't survive on airport hugs and late-night calls forever. Because over time, that schedule, those miles, turned connection into routine and routine into loneliness. This wasn't a sudden fracture. It wasn't a breaking point. It was a pattern, one that quietly defined their entire marriage. A parent who's gone 200 days, a year isn't just away. They're absent. And when absence becomes normal, presence starts to feel temporary. It's not the tour, not the fame, not the spotlight. It's the silence in between, the empty chairs, the missed mornings, the birthdays celebrated through a screen. And absence, no matter how glamorous, leaves a mark. In 2006, not long after their wedding, Keith Urban checked into rehab. It was a moment that could have shattered their marriage before it began. But it didn't. Nicole stood by him, fiercely, quietly, without hesitation. Her love, her stability, her forgiveness, they became his anchor. And for a while it worked. He got better. They built a life, a family, a rhythm that looked steady from the outside. But love that saves can also drain. Because saving someone once takes strength. Saving them again takes everything. Over the years, that same patience, the one that once healed, began to fade. Not out of anger, but exhaustion. And while the court documents make no mention of substance issues, the imbalance inside them raises old questions. Some wonder if history quietly repeated itself. Not through relapse, but through neglect. Because addiction isn't always about substances. Sometimes it's about priorities. About chasing applause instead of presence. In the end, what fractured them may not have been failure, but focus. A love stretched too thin across too many stages. And what the papers do show is a marriage built to break cleanly. No accusations. No battles. Just signatures and silence. When Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban decided to marry, they did more than exchange vows. They built a blueprint for their future, and perhaps quietly for their ending. No alimony. No shared assets. No battles waiting in the wings. Everything separate, everything clear, like they had planned this from the start. When you sign a prenup this clean, you're not just protecting your fortune. You're protecting your future self. You're acknowledging the possibility that love, no matter how real, might not last forever. It's foresight. And perhaps a quiet lack of faith in forever. A way to ensure that, when the moment came, walking away wouldn't destroy everything else. And that legal clarity, it made leaving easier. Safer. Less messy. But it also made the silence louder. Because when you can exit cleanly, you don't need words. You just need signatures. From the outside, their life looked flawless. Anniversary tributes, ACM awards, red carpets, smiles, hugs, and sparkling jewelry, the picture of Hollywood perfection. And all the while, behind the cameras, the negotiations were already underway. Lawyers drafting custody plans, signatures exchanging silently, divorce papers being prepared as smiles were posed. They smiled for cameras as their lawyers signed the papers. Nicole once said, "There are no perfect couples." At the time, it sounded like wisdom. Now, it feels almost prophetic. They weren't lying to fans. They were lying to themselves. And when the truth finally surfaced, it didn't come in a statement. It didn't come in an interview. It came in numbers. The math of custody, of absence, of choices. A silent truth that no smile, no photo, no public display could ever hide. And now the numbers. 306. 59. It's simple math on paper, but in real life, it tells a story of absence, compromise, and quiet resignation. Nicole's schedule, filled with projects, home life, responsibility. Keith's schedule, filled with touring, lights, applause. Two lives running parallel, rarely intersecting. She stopped pretending. He stopped fighting. And the paperwork told the story neither of them could. The custody days, the touring days, the silence in legal documents. All of it adds up to one undeniable truth. A marriage stretched too thin, broken not by scandal, but by the slow erosion of presence. So, was this just a marriage lost to fame? Or was it something deeper, unspoken, invisible, and perhaps never to be admitted? Because in Hollywood, the most brutal truths aren't shouted. They're filed,